Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.
Thursday evening, April 3rd, 2025, live. I'm Rich Mancuso. This is Keep It in the Ring on my YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. Also, String Punk Entertainment, and like my Facebook page, Keep It in the Ring. Welcome in, everyone. The boxing events, the schedule scrolling at the bottom of your screen. My social media handles, as always, xring786, facebook.com, Rich Mancuso. I'm also on Instagram. And don't forget to read my content on latinosports.com and String Punk Entertainment, String Punk Sports. Hey, I want to thank once again Thomas for filling in for me last week. He's not with us this week. Be back with us next week. But Scott Shurston, the head of String Punk Sports and Entertainment and such, whatever he does it all. He's manning the controls. I want to thank him for being with us tonight as well, helping out your old buddy Rich Mancuso. So let's keep it in the ring for the next hour, a little more. Rebel Rant will be coming up, the pro wrestling, and we're going to have a talk, and you're going to enjoy it. 2 parts to this. Next week, we'll continue it. 2-time world champ Keith Thurman. A lot to say. We'll get to that later. And we're going to talk about the logistics, not still finalized, for this big Times Square Fatal Fury show coming up in New York City. We'll talk about that, the analysis, the recaps, AEW Dynasty, part of wrestling segment, much more nostalgia. This is Keep It in the Ring. Let's get to it. First of all, I want to talk about Fatal Fury, Times Square, Friday evening, May the 2nd. We're only a few weeks away, maybe a month or so, before we get to this big event in Times Square, Riyadh season in New York City. This is a big event, never been done before, boxing in Times Square, and yet there are a lot of logistics still to be ironed out. Of course, we know the card, 3 big fights, Ryan Garcia and his comeback after the suspension against Rolly Romero, Devin Haney and Jose Ramirez, and Teofimo Lopez against Arnold Barbosa Jr., defending his WBO title. 140 is the spotlight, junior welterweight. Going to be a big night of boxing. But is it going to happen? It will, but the logistics still have to be ironed out. Sources are telling me, not in the boxing world, but in New York City, because I do have political connections, that certain things still have to be ironed out. Yeah, there's a go-ahead to do this big event in Times Square, and of course, that's a big boxing weekend ahead in Riyadh season. Canelo Alvarez the next night, and Noe, of course, is going to be fighting Top Rank ESPN the night after in Las Vegas. But the center of attention is this big event in Times Square, Ring of Fury on May the 2nd, and still things to be ironed out. In particular, 350 fans will get invitations to attend, meaning you, the public. If you want to buy a ticket, you can't. Meaning that if you want to converge on Times Square like this is going to be New Year's Eve, it's not going to happen. My sources and political ones that I know in the city of New York that are involved with all types of licensings and things like that are telling me logistics still to be ironed out. NYPD enforcement, you're going to need a lot of that in Times Square, of course. And also licenses for this, licenses for that. It's a headache. That's what I'm getting to. Now, is the show in jeopardy? Well, April Fool's Day was just the other day, April 1st. And the Turk guy on his Twitter X account, I thought it was real at one point. He said the event was canceled. He also said that the Canelo Alvarez event in Riyadh the next night was canceled, defending his IBF title against William Skull. Excuse me. And also said that they were out of boxing, the ring and so forth. That was a bunch of horse shit. He had us going for a while. But this show on May 2nd, just about a month away, I don't think it's going to be an April Fool's joke. It's going to happen. But there are complications. That's what I'm saying. And usually when you have complications in boxing at times, sometimes an event that's well hyped and scheduled doesn't occur. This one would be too much of an issue for everyone involved if it should get scrapped because logistics can't be straightened out. The latest I heard today was they are working on it. That being not the promoters involved in this event, a mega event with 3 major fights. The logistics are the issue. And New York City officials, that's the issue. to getting this all together. It's a go right now, but it's touch and go only because, again, of the logistics. So we'll keep you posted on that. Just check your boxing pages, check my page here on YouTube, check my pages, of course, on X and also on Facebook, and I can give you updates. What's going on here is we're a month away from Fatal Fury, as they're calling it, or whatever they're calling it again. Anyway, speaking about Eddie Hearn, a Matchroom, who's always in the news because he likes to talk. He says his light heavyweight champion there, Dimitri Bivol, says Bivol will fight whenever the Turk guy there in Saudi Arabia wants him next. He's hinted at a WBC mandatory against David Benvenitez, who is the mandatory opponent to Bivol's title, who defeated Arturo Beterbiev. He rules out anytime soon, though, against that a Bivol Beterbiev trilogy will take place. So for now, it looks like the attention here for Dimitri Bivol, the light heavyweight champion, is to get David Benvenitez next and not a trilogy Beterbiev-Bivol. That could happen maybe a year away, assuming that Bivol still has those titles. And Benvenitez, of course, eyeing those unification light heavyweight titles that are held by Dimitri Bivol. Now, here's a look. If everybody's asking about The Ring magazine and the Turk guy and the new fight league with Dana White and the UFC, here's a look at the new title belt if you didn't see it already. It's pretty different from all the others, and it's this new fight league. And again, let's remember, it's separate from this boxing sanctioning alphabet soup organizations. They will have their own divisions, separate title, that being the Ring title belt. So don't get it confused. It's totally different from the sanctioning groups. It will not conflict, but that's the title belt, and that's the one that looks pretty. Will this new league debut? Next year. That's what they're saying, early next year, and I think fight fans are anticipating this. There's been a lot of hype about it, and we want to see how this all transpires, who the fighters will be, the divisions, and so forth, and in the end, how will those alphabet soup organizations deal with this, even though it's a separate entity they are from the Ring. I'm hearing positives about this. I'm hearing negatives about this. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Comment here on the program. Keep it in the Ring. My YouTube channel right here. Also, Facebook, my X page. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think of the new fight league, the Turk guy, the Ring, and so forth? Now, we speak of Ryan Garcia, and I have been since he was suspended like a year ago. He's a year removed now from the April 1st, 2024, last year's suspension. His fight at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, seemed like yesterday against Devin Haney. The suspension is over. Now, that doesn't mean Ryan Garcia is staying quiet again on X. He's back at it. What he did all year when he got suspended. Let's take a look at some of those tweets or on X that he said this week. And they're comical again. He said if he loses to Rolly Romero, Friday night, May 2nd, I'm going to jail with Diddy. And then he cannot wait till I beat the silly breaks off Devin Haney again. It's better than sex. Now, come on, Ryan Garcia. Do you have to continually do this on your X account for attention that you don't need? Do you have to continually do this on Instagram for the attention you don't need? You're very much hyped as it is. Your suspension is over. You've been focusing on boxing. You've been focusing about getting back in the ring. As I say, keep it in the ring, Ryan Garcia. And yet he's back at it on social media again. And he's going after Devin Haney for one reason. Because he wants to fight him again to show that he's going to fight as a clean fighter. No PEDs, no coming in overweight, no drinking alcohol or smoking weed, as he said and he's admitted to. But he says he's focused as well, and he's ready for Rolly Romero in Times Square on May 2nd. The story again, though, is that Ryan Garcia is a superstar young one in the sport, needs to stay clean, very talented. We know he can do. The Devin Haney fight was an example of it, PEDs or not. Ryan Garcia is good for the sport, but most of all, he's only good for the sport if his head is clean. His mentality has to be straight. Now, according to sources, Stephen Fulton and Oshaki Foster are talking about Forster defending his WBC junior lightweight title, and that would be on the eventual Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach rematch as part of the undercard as a good co-main event. So we'll keep you updated on that. We'll see where that goes. That would be a good fight for the junior lightweight title currently held by Shaquille Forster. And, of course, he regained the title last year after losing it controversially. Now, let's take a look. Keep it in the ring. Rich Mancuso here. We're going to analyze the fights this past weekend. A couple of good ones. Let's first look at the rematch. It was on ESPN and Top Rank presented. Micaiah Mayer. She lost to Sandy Ryan the first time in September. Mayer, the controversial win at the time, majority decision. She won the women's WBO welterweight title from Ryan. This one, though, was just as good as the first one. And this one might have been better than the first one. Late rally from Ryan, the punch that showed the story here, courtesy of CompuBox. Meyer and Ryan separated by one landing punch total all. If we have the punch stats, we put them up. If not, Scott, don't worry about it. Meyer averaged 52 punches thrown, 18 punches per round. Ryan 38 to 15. And 98-92 Meyer on one card, 97-93 two times by two other judges. But for now, we know this. The rivalry between these two great female fighters is over. And now Meyer is looking to challenge Lauren Price, who has 3 other world titles at welterweight and for the undisputed title. So that chapter's over for now. A good fight in the female division it was on Top Rank. And speaking of Top Rank and Hall of Fame promoter Bob Arum, on the Micaiah card in Las Vegas, Brian Norman Jr., his first title defense, defended the WBO welterweight title, the TKO over Cuevas, and Norman connected on 44% of his punches. He hurt Cuevas early, and now the question is for Brian Norman, who's next in the division? He's calling them all out. And Bruce Carrington, undefeated, stays 15-0. Looking at Stephen Fulton, by the way, who I just mentioned for the featherweight title, or Nick Ball, after his third-round knockout over Enrique Vivas. And for Bruce Carrington, he for sure is on his way, undefeated at 15-0. And we're talking about Bob Arum and ESPN with the talk that now ESPN is going to get out of boxing. In fact, there's more of a hint of that more now because Mike Coppinger, an esteemed colleague who's been in ESPN the last few years and a great boxing writer and storyteller he is. Coppinger has left ESPN as their main boxing writer and is headed and is there now with the Ring magazine. And Bob Arum, though, is talking about the future here and Top Rank and where they will stream their fights. You know, they do have something going on ESPN this weekend. We'll get to that in a moment. Arum and Top Rank reportedly are talking with Amazon Prime, among a few of the outlets where the PBC is, and talking about working with the PBC. And that could make a matchup for Fulton and Carrington also, if that does happen, and some more intriguing and good fights if indeed Bob Arum is done with ESPN, as ESPN, as my sources tell me, pretty sure, hinting more and more that they're out of the boxing game come July when the current top-ranked ESPN contract is over. And in that case, Bob Arum is looking again at Amazon Prime and working with the PBC. He's also talking to Warner Brothers, Time Warner Discovery. Basically, it's this. Top Rank needs a major outlet, just like they've had over the last 5 years or more with ESPN. They've worked well together. They made the fights. The fighters kept busy. The champions were made. And you, the fans, some good dynamite fights on ESPN the last few years, courtesy of Top Rank Boxing and Bob Arum. So we'll see where that develops. But it looks like Arum and ESPN and their great working agreement over the years is going to come to an end at some point by the end of July. But on the zone this weekend, the rematch of 4 months ago, William Zepeda won a controversial split decision over Tevin Farmer, the WBO interim lightweight champ. He defeats Farmer again, Great fight in Mexico it was. Zapata, the one card, 114-114. You can go with that. Another 116-112. 115-113 is the way another judge had it. The way I had it, he retained the title. Farmer said afterward he respects Zapata after the decision that he felt he won, and he's a possible opponent now, Zapata, for Shakur Stevenson in the division. But he said, Farmer, he dominated the last rounds and has no respect for boxing by not getting the decision. Look, I had it 115-113. One judge had it even. This was a tight and good fight on the zone. And, let's say Farmer deserved better. But, boxing, again, when it comes down to the scorecards with the three blind mice judges at ringside, who I thought got it right this time, it's a subjective sport. You don't knock out your opponent, you go to the scorecards, you don't know what you're going to get, especially in a tight fight like this one was. But for Zapata, he moves on, and maybe Shakur Stevenson next. There are numerous options for Shakur Stevenson, and it could be that he gets Zapata next, or down the line at some point this year or early next. We'll see. Trevor Farmer, he ain't going nowhere. He's going to be around. And if anything, he deserves a ranking now in the division based on this performance against Zapata. And Zapata dominated the first 5 rounds with the southpaw jab and the body attack. He's 28 years old. He's undefeated, 32-0, 27 knockouts. The punch stats that showed that Zapata threw 344 of 974 in total punches. Farmer, 152 of 679. Let's move on and talk about Canelo Alvarez, who many say is still the face of the sport. Some may not agree with that. I kind of say he still is because he draws, he brings in the money to the promoters, and Canelo Alvarez also is a pay-per-view spectacle. Everyone watches him, whether you're a boxing fan or not. Well, Canelo Alvarez is saying he won't fight David Benavidez. And again, we are into this story. Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. We've heard this for the last 2 years, and Benavidez said he's far from that, and he's away from all of this now that he's a light heavyweight and an interim champ, and looking now for Dimitri Bivol's title as a mandatory. But Canelo Alvarez says when it comes down to this, he says David Benavidez, he will not fight because he's disrespectful. And he said Benavidez is getting easy money at this point. Totally disagree with that. You see, Canelo Alvarez, as talented as he is, and all he's done in the sport to build the legacy he has, and now still a champion at 168 with all the belts, and we'll get the IBF one from William Skull in May. Canelo Alvarez should keep his mouth shut when it comes to talking about disrespecting fighters. If anything, he gets more in disfavor with me, with media, with fight fans because of the way he disrespects other fighters of greatness. And David Benavidez has nothing to be ashamed of. He's a great fighter. He did deserve Canelo Alvarez, and he wanted Canelo Alvarez. The point here is that Canelo Alvarez avoided David Benavidez because David Benavidez might have been the one guy in that division at 168 that could have knocked him out with that power punch that Benavidez has. Styles make fights. This would have been great for the two of them. But now, though, Benavidez says no. He's far away from it. He's a light heavyweight, might even go to cruiserweight, and Canelo Alvarez is the last thing on his mind. So Canelo, concentrate on your legacy. Leave David Benavidez alone. Whether you say he's disrespectful or not, Benavidez doesn't think you're disrespectful. So stop it, Canelo, will you? And who cares at this point? Canelo focused on William Skull for the IBF title in Riyadh on Saturday, May the 3rd. That should be his only point of interest at this point. And then move on to September for the big mega fight everyone is waiting to see if it's still going to be held. Who knows between now and September with Terrence Bud Crawford as Crawford moves up 2 weights to light heavyweight, going from I don't know if Bud Crawford can handle going up 2 weight classes. He says he can. He's going to be moving from 154 all the way up now to 168. Bud can hold his weight. And that's a fight that we're going to talk about as we get closer and closer to it to September, and to see who is really the best. Maybe pound for pound best. No longer those two would be considered that. Though many still say Canelo Alvarez is pound for pound best in the sport. Again, as I just said and reiterate, many still believe the face of the sport. And top-ranked rising prospect, the 20-year-old four light welterweight Emiliano Vargas, the second-round knockout over Giovanni Gonzalez. You know, more and more, Vargas looking more like his father, the great champion of the past with top-ranked 13-0, 11 knockouts. And he's coming right back. He's going to be fighting again soon in a couple of weeks. And we'll talk more about Vargas. I'm trying to get him on the program as well. Very talented, very quick, got a good punch, but won his latest fights over the weekend on Top Rank card, 13-0, 11 knockouts. Former heavyweight champ Deontay Wilder in the news, and I say, remember, he said he retired, and I said that wouldn't stand. Well, sure enough, I was right again. He's returning. The former heavyweight champ with that great right and great punch could be back in that heavyweight title division again if he's the same. June 27th, Wichita, Kansas. Deontay Wilder said he's returning, but Wilder has only won one of his last 5 fights, and after that last defeat, he said, no more. But as all fighters do, they can't get enough of it. They retire, and then they come back, just like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury says no more, yet we know he's going to come back soon, and they go, well, they will eventually announce it. The long-anticipated bout with Anthony Joshua will happen in the UK at Wembley before 80,000 fans. Deontay Wilder's story this week, heavyweight division, will he be an impact again? Remains to be determined. How about Jamal Charlo co-headlining separate bouts with Khalid Plant? May 3rd in Las Vegas, PBC, Amazon Prime. These two have animosity for sure. Remember, they went at it in July of 2023. Plant with the open slap to Charlo at the Crawford Spence weigh-in. Well, Charlo has been conspicuous by his absence from the ring the last year or so and hasn't done much. But he's coming back on a separate fight on the same show with Plant. And if the two of them win, at some point, as they say, the PBC, they will clash at some point, maybe some point this year. We know what Plant can do. He's won his last few fights. He's on the comeback trail and doing really well in the division. Charlo's always being talked about as a powerhouse in the division. And we'll see now if the two of them prevail on May 31st in Las Vegas, May 3rd in Vegas, rather, on PBC Amazon Prime Boxing, and see if the two of them eventually will clash. And I'm pretty sure both of them will prevail, and that is inevitable. And the animosity the two of them have, can you imagine what it's going to be like towards fight week and the presser before? What will happen with these two? Hey, folks, as I always say, this is boxing. Anything is possible. Okay, we look at Terrence Crawford. We talk about him again. According to the WBO, he is not returning to the 154-pound division, which means his interim WBO title is because he's going to 168 and because he's fighting Canelo Alvarez. The WBO is going to take that title away from him and designating Xander Zayas the mandatory challenger to Sebastian Fundora. And, of course, if Zayas, with his latest win, became the mandatory to Sebastian Fundora. But for now, Terrence Crawford is leaving 154, according to the WBO, where he was the champ, or the interim champ, and now will center his attention at Canelo Alvarez at 168. The mandatory again, Xander Zayas against Sebastian Ventura. Hasn't been officially announced. It will be with maybe New York City. That'd be a great fight for Madison Square Garden. We'll see what transpires there. Now let's go to this weekend. Let's look at the fight calendar this weekend. You know, heavyweights Joe Joyce, who's always in the picture of that division, on the zone against Philip Halbeck. And Top Rank ESPN is an interesting card, and that's going to be Saturday night as well. The unified heavyweight, the undefeated heavyweight, Richard Torres Jr. on the way up the ladder against, I got his opponent. I'm going to look at the calendar. It's being scrolled at the bottom of the screen, but watch Richard Torres if you can. He's an exciting young heavyweight prospect from Top Rank. And the lightweight, Abdullah Mason. That's an exciting lightweight. Top Rank got him. He's a prospect. He wins. He also moves up the ladder some more. He's been fighting regularly 3 times a year. You don't hear that about fighters no more. They don't fight 3 times a year no more. Top Rank is slowly but surely milking, as I say, the youngster Abdullah Mason. And in Australia, Amazon Prime Video this weekend. I think you got to get up at 4 a.m. to watch it. It's in Australia, or it's late night. The great, Tszyu. He's on the comeback trail after losing his titles in that bloodbath last March to Vendura versus Joseph Spencer, junior middleweights. Tszyu needs to rebound, though. Tszyu needs to rebound. He needs this win. Because if he doesn't win this fight, then he's not relevant enough in this division to say he can get the title back. That's a good fight to watch, though. Tszyu is interesting. He's coming off the Fundora loss, of course. He came off that. He's on the way back. He feels he's ready. He feels he's stable enough. He's healthy. And he feels that he can be a part of the title mix again in the division. And so we'll have our eyes in Australia where Tszyu mostly fights. In fact, in a little while, you're going to hear, I don't know if we'll get to that part of the segment, but Keith Thurman talks about him because that's his possibly next opponent. And, of course, next week our attention will be in Atlantic City, New Jersey at Boardwalk Hall. Boxing returns. It's on the zone. I will be there at ringside. The 147-pound unification quest continues for Gerard Boots Ennis, who is the IBF champ in the division. Ennis against Emmanuel Stenonis on the zone next weekend, and that's for unification. Stenonis has part of those titles. Ennis has the others. It's going to be a great fight on the Boardwalk Convention Hall in Atlantic City next weekend. We'll preview it next week on the program. All right, you heard me talking about the Tszyu and his intentions. If he wins this weekend, it's possible that he gets Keith Thurman next. Now, yesterday, I had the pleasure, finally, of going one-on-one with Keith one-time Thurman, the former 2-time champion, who's now at 154, came out of his fight last week, successful in his debut at 154. He's on the comeback trail. Now, here's what we're going to do. This interview went over a half hour or more, and I don't want to play the whole thing. I'll have segments in on my YouTube channel. What I'm going to do is play 15 minutes of it, a little less this week, and continue it next week. He gets into a lot of subject areas with me. The possible Tszyu fight next, and he talks about Manny Pacquiao and his fight with him and Danny Garcia, where he unified the welterweight titles of 147 at the Barclays Center a few years back. Great champion Thurman is. He's on the comeback trail. And we go into a whole lot of things. And it was really an interesting discussion. Me and one-time Keith Thurman. Let's take a look at this first 15 minutes. And the fact of the week with him will probably come next week. So, Scott, roll it. Enjoy it. Here I am with Keith one-time Thurman. Keep It in the Ring continues tonight. And my pleasure to get him, finally, the 2-time champion, Keith one-time Thurman. Hey, champ, how are you today? Thanks for being a part of Keep It in the Ring with Rich Mancuso. I must tell you, this is indeed a pleasure. I've covered most of your fights, title fights, exciting fighter when you were the welterweight champion of the world. And now you're at 154, and we're going to talk about your latest fight after that 2-year layoff. How you doing, champ?
I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here. It was a fun get back into the ring celebration for sure.
Yeah, you certainly came back strong after the 2 year layoff, and I'm going to
3 year
show.
layoff. 3
Oh,
years.
it was 3 years. Correct
3
me. Yeah, I thought it was only two. So um, that's even more impressive, by the way, because that's not easy for a fighter to do. I've been around the sport for 40 years or plus, and I've seen it. Some guys have rushed. You certainly didn't show it. And Tom, let's roll footage of that knockout in Australia against Brock Jobbers. Go ahead, Tom. Roll it. Keith, take a look at.
That's it.
Come on, baby! One time! We back!
How did it feel getting back in there? All that excitement, and of course, so enthused you were that you got that win impressively. How did it feel first fighting in Australia and getting back in there after the layoff?
It's funny because, you're in Australia, you're not in America. It's my first time as a main event fighting outside of the US. I fought once in Canada on an up and coming event when I was doing cards with Golden Boy. Nobody saw it. It was untelevised. It was my first time main event out of the country, and there's just something about getting into that ring. Like, this might not be my home, but you put me in the ring and I'm home. You're not gonna make me feel uncomfortable. You could put that ring in the middle of Mars. You can put it on the moon. I don't care where you put it. Once I step in the ring, I feel at home. And just getting into the ring, 2024 was a hard year when 2 weeks before my big Vegas, that was supposed to be my 2 year comeback fighting
Yeah.
Ken Zhu in Las Vegas. And 2 weeks before my performance in the 11th round of sparring, I popped my bicep tendon and unfortunately had to go have surgery and pull out of the competition. So last year was a really tough year, but I found a way to stay positive. And I said, you just got to come back and, take what the world of boxing gives you. And let's just remind the world, because they were saying, oh, it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. And now I'm finally getting back in the ring. Oh, it's been 3 years. It's been 3 years. I was just in a training camp for a really tough fight last year. I was cutting weight. I was getting in shape. I was doing a lot of rounds in sparring. And there's just a lot that certain people didn't get to see. And it makes them question. And I said, if you really want to know, pay attention to this fight and this performance. And, I've been trying to tell everybody, yeah, I'm 36 years old, but I'm not beat up besides the injuries that I've suffered. And I'm ready to get in the ring and mix it up, man. I got plenty more fight left in me when it comes to this
Yes, you
beautiful
do.
sport of
You did.
boxing.
You did say you see what I do after the fight impressively again, and also the fact is that that again not easy to be away from the ring that long, even though you eat, drink, and sleep boxing 24/7. I know about that about Keith Thurman. How did you keep your mentality during this layoff, knowing that you're going to go back in? And more importantly, you debuted, I believe, was your debut fight, right, at 154.
Uh, what do you mean, my pro debut?
No, you came in at 154. This was your you're in
Oh,
154
yes, my
now,
first
and
fight in
your
the
first
division.
fight at
Correct.
154.
Correct.
And how did you feel about that? I mean, you always had intentions of moving up in weight, and you did, and of course, successfully how it went. How did you keep your mentality through all of this?
Definitely, you know, just through the grace of God, you just got to stay positive. And I was just able to, I had a lot of time to reflect in 2024. So it was a tough year, but I was able to get by. Um, Walking away from a big contract, a big fight, never feels good to leave that much money on the table when it was up there for grabs. Win, lose, or draw, the money's coming home when you perform, win, lose, or draw. So to completely walk away, that was a tough call. But I said, we don't fight just for the money. I know a lot of times we all fighters talk about fighting for the money, and maybe there's a time in your career where that's all you focus on is the money. I've been to that stage where I was focused on the money, and I said to myself, what's more important is that you fight to win, and you fight to give the fans the best version of Keith One Time Thurman. And when I realized that I might not be able to do that, and I got to make this call quick, because 2 weeks before the fight, every day you're just getting closer to the fight, and I know boxing business. Um, they had a replacement ready, so, last thing I want to do is mess up a whole fight card and things like that. So I had to pull the strings. But when I was in California after the surgery, because my surgical doctor, he did my hand surgery in 2019, and he
Mhm.
just did the bicep surgery in 2024 here. So he's a very great doctor, and I love working with him. And to be next to him after the surgery, we had to stay in California for 8 weeks. So instead of making money like I was supposed to, here I am spending money. And luckily for me, my family came into town. My wife's family, my in-laws, came into town to help me out with my wife and kids, because after the surgery, I can't pick up my own children. And we had a very beautiful Airbnb down there by the beaches in California, and just seeing that beautiful view, and going to a local park that I took my daughter to a lot, playground, and there was another lake nearby, and just kind of being in nature was very therapeutic for me, because there's so much beauty in nature, that you don't have to do nothing but sit back and enjoy, what's already created. And just kind of showed me that even when things are not going great, you can still have a beautiful day. And those
Well
beautiful
said. Yeah. Yeah.
and those beautiful days, you know, there's if I focus on the negativity in my mind, I can turn a beautiful day ugly real quick. But if I just sit in nature and I watch the birds fly over me, and I watch the squirrels run around me, and everyone's being provided for. All these animals, are these animals begging for their food? You know, everything is happening. The sun is shining, the clouds, everything was just happening almost like the way it's supposed to happen. And I allowed myself to kind of have faith that you might not know why this is supposed to happen. And as I started to recover and I mentally was preparing myself for my comeback, I came to the conclusion that maybe, just maybe, and maybe I just needed to say this to myself so I could sleep at night, but no matter what, it worked for me. And I told myself that maybe you weren't supposed to come back in 2024. You're supposed to come back after more of a layoff, after more people are going to doubt with your injuries, just because this generation has not seen one of those great comebacks like
Wow.
we've
Yeah.
seen from other generations. And me as a boxer, as a historian, to know that I'm on the precipice of creating one of those in action live right now, 2025, that I can bring a comeback story to the beautiful sport of boxing as Keith One Time Thurman, something that the world has not seen at this level, at this stage, and nobody from my generation, besides a brother, and I think Danny Jacobs with his comeback story from his spinal surgery and things that he was suffering. I did like watching his comeback, but for right now, that was many years ago. So right now at 2025, where we're at in the sport of boxing, I don't think a lot of people have a comeback story like me. So if I can rise back up and get that world title, I think, I'll just be like Bernard Hopkins or something.
Yeah.
They'll start calling me an alien. Like it's not normal.
Champ, well said. You inspired me with those words in that story, which brings you to my next question after your comeback win. Tszyu is a guy you called out, and he's fighting this weekend in Australia. Joey Spencer is his opponent in Newcastle. Will you be observing that for sure?
Definitely. I know about Joey Spencer's come up through Premier Boxing Champions when he was doing very, very well. He was a guy on the rise before his defeat to Abel Ramos, a very tough opponent. Just gave Mario Barrios a terrific fight. But, Tim Tszyu is also coming off of, two career losses back to back. Where is he mentally, physically? I think both of these fighters have a lot to gain. I love a fight like that where two men are trying to reestablish themselves in boxing and do great things once again to prove to the world. So which one is gonna outdo who? I don't know Joey Spencer personally as a fighter. We are not amongst the same circle of people in the sport of boxing, but from what I see, and I've heard people who are a little closer to Joey, I heard he does have some pop. That he is a strong,
Yeah. He has power. Yeah.
They do say he has power. So
Yeah.
I don't remember like when I went back and watched the Abel Ramos fight, I didn't see him really set his power. When I see him working the bag, I still see some like those amateurish combos that like, but at the end of the day, if the power that I'm hearing about, I'm interested if he can get that off first on Tim Tszyu before Tim Tszyu warms up because he's a slow starter. So I think if Joey Spencer is going to do something, he's going to do something within those initial 3 to 4 rounds. And as you get into round 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, I think we're going to see more of Tim Tszyu opening up if we get to that stage.
Yeah.
Tim Tszyu was not able to get there.
How close are you to maybe getting that fight? Is there been any talk at all?
They
or
want it. They want
mhm.
it. No limit boxing. His promoters, they want it. They were happy to
would you do it here or in Australia?
They're gonna do it there. They that's what I mean. When I say they want it, I mean they want it. Australia wants it. No Limit Promotion wants the fight. And they want to promote the fight, host the fight, and let it be a big fight in Australia.
Would that be, champ, the biggest fight of your career next to winning that title from Danny Garcia at Barclays Center in Brooklyn that I covered?
No.
And you were impressive that night. You were impressive that night against Danny Garcia.
Yeah, I mean, unifying world titles in the Barclays, no. Fighting Tim Tszyu last year when he was the undefeated champion, and that still wouldn't have been my biggest, one of my biggest fights of my career. I mean, at the Manny Pacquiao event was the biggest, most electric event, and then the Danny Garcia fight. That was the highlight of my career where I got to unify those two world titles. And Danny Garcia was the undefeated Danny Garcia at the time. When I fought Sean Porter, it was Showtime's fight of the year.
Oh, yeah. You fought the best in that division, and you never avoided any of them. Well, you know what? I think we got a lot out of Keith One-Time Thurman there for 15 minutes this week. Interesting observations and looking at at Tszyu, a possible next opponent. And I love the fact that he talked about the Danny Garcia fight. I was there, and I'm sure a lot of you were. And if you haven't seen that fight, which was a controversial decision, by the way, that Thurman won, and many thought he didn't, barely. Take a look at it. It's on YouTube, and give your thoughts about it. One thing about Keith One-Time Thurman that I admire so much is his tenacity, as a lot of fighters have, but more so the mentality of a fighter who had a 3-year layoff. I thought it was 2. He corrected me on that. 3-year layoff, comes back and successfully wins in Australia, which he loved. And that's where he'd have to fight Tszyu if they do indeed do this right. And it sounds like it could happen. And let's see what Tszyu does this weekend. So next week, we'll play the rest of it. And there's some interesting parts of what he talks about next week, his future in the sport, what he's going to do afterwards, how many more years he feels he has left. Also, he goes in some other great aspects about the sport, including championship fights that should be 15 rounds and not 12, something that's few fighters are advocating for, as well as yours truly. And my thanks to Tommy D for helping me put this together, and Hannah Bolte of Media, his publicist, for helping me along. I hope you got a lot out of that as much as I did. We'll play the rest of it next week with Keith One-Time Thurman, the former unified welterweight champion of the world, the 2-time champion, one time, as he says, Keith Thurman. More of it next week. On that note, we'll take a quick time out. This is Keep It in the Ring. I'm Rich Mancuso, back with the pro wrestling info and, of course, the Rebel Rant with Robbie Rebel. Stay tuned. Stay with us. I'm Rich Mancuso. This is Keep It in the Ring. Back in a moment.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.
Petwell Clinic was built with busy pet parents like you in mind, providing walk-in preventative vet care, treatment for minor ailments, and chronic condition management. You remain with your pet throughout their visit, and all charges are clearly explained, so there are no surprises at checkout. Just walk in to our Paramus, Greenbrook, or Union locations, or visit us at petwellclinic.com for more information.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.
Get me on social media, folks. X, Twitter, Ring786. Scroll to the bottom of your screen. Of course, Facebook.com, Rich Mancuso. Also on Instagram. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Rich Mancuso. Keep It in the Ring. String Punk Entertainment. And let's get to the Pro Wrestling Report. Before that, one MMA note of interest, and it's about the Global Fight League. The first two events this year are going to be taking place in Los Angeles. So if you're a combat sports fan and you like the action in the octagon, you're going to get it from the Global Fight League this year. 6 organizations, it looks like 6 organization athletes from the league will be competing in 10 weight classes. But the most important part of this is the trilogy with UFC champions Anthony Pettis and Benson Henderson. Of course, Pedersen won both of those affairs in the octagon when they got it together. They're going to do it a third time. The pro wrestling news, and there's an awful lot of that. We get into WrestleMania season, but my first focus of attention is going to be on AEW with Dynasty coming up on pay-per-view this Sunday. You can get that on payperview.com, and you can also get that on Amazon. They have numerous places you can get it. Pay-per-view Dynasty. We will talk about AEW, though, on Max. Tony Khan on the conference call said just a day ago that the numbers are way up on Max, part of his Time Warner Discovery agreement. And I don't know if I can agree with that totally. The ratings have not been that great on TBS and TNT. And he also, they will not conflict AEW Collision or whatever. No, All In, the next pay-per-view is supposed to conflict with WWE's Saturday Night Main Event in July. As a result of that, AEW All In, their big pay-per-view event, the Global Field in Texas, in Arlington, they're going to start it earlier because of the conflict. They don't want to lose viewers. They can't afford to lose any viewers. But let's talk about Dynasty right up there. Sunday, Lacoste Center, Philadelphia. And payperview.com, again, is a good outlet to get it. Also on Thunder TV, Thriller TV. And let's run it down. Jericho and Bandito for the Ring of Honor Championship, the mask on the line. Death Riders, Fatal against FTR, Trios title. FTR looks like on the verge of breakup. Daniel Garcia and Adam Cole for the TNT title. Mercedes and defends her TBS title. And Speedball Bailey, the international championship grab. Kenny Omega against Ricochet. That's a friendly, not going to be a friendly battle in the ring. They're going at it. Toni Storm and Megan Blake. She is exciting. Toni Storm's got it out for her to defend the championship. John Moxley and Strickland. That's the main event. That's a war. Continued last night on AEW Dynamite. I believe Moxley's going to lose the title. Strickland bound to get it back. MJF is still in the picture. He's been rejected by Bobby Lashley in the Hurt Business, so I don't know where that's going, but watch MJF, who's supposedly still the face of AEW, get involved somehow, somewhere. Dynamite, this looks like a good AEW pay-per-view event on Sunday. The highlight again, Moxley and Strickland, as AEW tries to stay relevant with WWE, and many say that is so difficult to do. Tony Khan says they are relevant and they're doing well. I don't know about that. What do you think? So, WrestleMania season, and that John Cena and Cody Rhodes, that just gets better and better, the promos. And of course, you saw on Monday Night Raw at 3 p.m. Eastern, because they were in the UK again. They go back to the States Monday. Thank God Raw's coming back Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, the regular time on Netflix. And you saw Rhodes sucker punch Cena, and Cena went down. That's going to continue with WrestleMania fastly approaching in a couple of weeks. And then you're going to get the triple threat. You're going to Seth Rollins, Punk, and of course, Roman Reigns. And they're going to have Charlotte against Tiffany. And you're going to have Rhea, Bianca, and Sky, most likely in a triple threat. Owens, Orton, Styles, and Jake Paul. And this came out today because everyone's been asking me, and I'm going to cue you in a little bit. Bear with me. I'm going to bring it up. They've got the card set up basically what they're going to do. The individual night one, Punk versus Reigns versus Rollins, Gunther versus Uso, which continues to drag. Let's get to it already. That's night one, Owens versus Orton, Charlotte versus Tiffany. Night two, Cena versus Rhodes. That probably will close it all up. Bianca Belair, Ripley, Styles versus and Styles versus Jake Paul. We're still 2 weeks out. That's a preliminary look at how night 1 and 2 will transpire, with more to come. So, of course, we'll update you next week, and you know where to get your wrestling news as well. All right. Rusev also returning to WWE. That's the big news. Will Lana, his wife again, follow? They were a duo at one time in WWE. Let's see what happens. All right. Time for the best segment of this program, as always, with me with wrestling. I'm going to tune away for a while. Is he there, Scott? Do we have Robbie Rebel and the Rebel Rant going tonight?
I haven't heard. I haven't seen him.
He's not there?
No, sir.
Oh, no Rebel Rant tonight. I wonder what... why Robbie Rebel? Well, I'm going to get on his case. I thought we had Robbie Rebel tonight.
My email to him with the links didn't get kicked back. I promise you that.
No. He either he fell asleep or he just got confused that it's probably next week, because I did text him and tell him that we were running the Keith Thurman segment. It might run over, and I guess he felt he wouldn't have the time. So I'll talk to him about it, though. That's okay. I miss him, though, Scott. You know, I do miss the Rebel Rant. I miss Robbie Rebel when he's not here with us. Do you agree?
He does have a bit of energy about him, but I'm not exactly sure exactly what happened here. But if it makes you feel better, if you want to blame me for it, I can take that hit. It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Oh, well, no. I'm not going to blame you, Scott. But it happens. It happens. It might have been miscommunication.
Hey, it's all about team player here.
We'll get him again next week. Anyway, on that note, let's take one more brief timeout, real brief. Come back, wrap it all up with the nostalgia segment, and say goodbye for the week. This is Keep It in the Ring. I'm Rich Mancuso, live on my YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and on String Punk Entertainment. Brief timeout. Back in a brief moment.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.
Back with you. I'm Rich Mancuso. This is Keep It in the Ring, live on my YouTube channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, Scott, miscommunication. He thought he wasn't going to be on tonight. Claims he didn't get the link to get on. Robbie will be back with us next week, the Rebel Rant. He has a lot to say. It's not the same without him. I miss him. I really do. Thank you, Anthony Bolton, for responding. Salute to you also, and to all of you who commented tonight and continue to comment about Keep It in the Ring. All right, let's get to the nostalgia segment and talk about what I do every week. I love going back in time and take a look at April 5th, 1915. There's Jess Willard, who knocked out the great Jack Johnson in round 26. 26 rounds of boxing back in 1915. He claimed the world heavyweight title then, Willard. This was at Oriental Park in Havana, Cuba, which made it even more interesting. For Johnson, his ninth defense of his title. Then he was the longest heavyweight championship. That was the longest heavyweight championship bout in the 20th century. And yeah, 26 rounds would definitely say that it was in boxing history. Great to see that. April 5th in 1915, Jesse Willard knocking out the great Jack Johnson. And then we go to April 6th, 1987. Hall of Famers, Sugar Ray Leonard defeated the other Hall of Famer, the late marvelous Marvin Hagler. Split decision win, the WBC Middleweight Championship at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. I think I got an image of that, Scott. If you have it, put it up. If not, that we'll get by with this way. Leonard was fighting the second time in 5 years, which made it even more interesting. He was the underdog. It's the 12th defense of the title he won in 1980, and that fight back then, in an era in the 1980s, Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, Duran, and a ton more. That was an era of boxing. If you didn't live it, and I did, and I covered a lot of those fights, you missed what boxing was all about. Classic era in the sport with some great fighters, Hall of Famers. And, of course, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler had their many battles in the ring, including the great Roberto Duran. So here we go. April 6, 1987, Sugar Ray Leonard defeated Marvin Hagler. Split decision win for the WBC Middleweight Championship, the underdog, and named fight of the decade. You could always watch those fights on YouTube. They're chronicled there all the time. Get hold of it if you're a nostalgia buff and a historian and love boxing as much as I do. You go back in time, you look at this stuff, you enjoy it. You see how boxing was years ago. Great era at that time. And that, my friends, closes up the Keep It in the Ring for this week. Of course, next week, there you go. Now, Scott, a little late on that. What are you, Robbie Rebel too? Late? I'm teasing. I'm teasing the great Scott Churston. String Punk Entertainment has a ton of responsibility on String Punk Entertainment and Network. He mans number of shows. He's got a life like I do. Does this 24/7, so he's bound to make a couple of mistakes. I forgive him all the time. Don't I do that to you, Scott?
You forgive you, but I don't forgive me for mistakes. That's usually how it works. So.
Well, next week I give you the break because I expect Tommy D back in the fold with us. And there he is, TD Sports Talk, my great friend Tommy D. He'll be back with us next week. We'll be back with you next week, 8 p.m. live Eastern, here on my YouTube channel, String Punk Entertainment. And we'll have the rest of that interesting interview with Keith One-Time Thurman. Well, next week he'll talk about his future after the sport, what he thinks about the sport, healthy or not, and so forth. Again, Keith One-Time Thurman, just an interesting. Not only is a great fighter, he was a unified champ, two-time champ, and on that comeback trail successfully, but has great insights about the sport and everything else. I hope you enjoyed that first segment. I will play some more clips of it on YouTube as we go along during the next coming week. Until then, my friends, remember to log on to my YouTube channel and also subscribe. Subscribe, like, comment, also String Punk Entertainment, and like the Facebook page, Keep It in the Ring. In addition, don't forget my social media handles to get me if you want. X, Twitter, Ring786, Facebook.com, Rich Mancuso. Also on Instagram, read my content, Latinosports.com, and also on String Punk Entertainment. But thanks again to the great Scott Church, and thanks to you for watching. As always, back with you next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, as I always say, everyone, hope you enjoyed this week. Stay well, be well. And also, God bless and be good to each other. Most important, you do that. Till next week, my friends, I'm Rich Mancuso. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep it in the ring. Thank you.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.